Today on the channel we are driving this 2009 Mercedes-Benz CLK550 as part of the inventory at First International Auto Group out of Merrimack, New Hampshire. The C209 generation CLK550 was launched in 2001, and they made this coupe style along with a convertible until 2009, where it was essentially replaced by an E-Class. So this CLK was sold with many different powertrains, but today we have the almighty 5.5 liter naturally aspirated V8. So this CLK was finished in iridium silver metallic. Of course, we have the 5-spoke AMG wheels, which are 18 inches. The front end is just classic and peak Mercedes-Benz. Of course, I just love how this front end looks. I do wish they had like the crown symbol, for Mercedes. I think that would be cool. We don't have a B-pillar in this coupe, which is pretty cool. We of course just have these frameless windows and they both roll down, all four automatically. On the rear end, I would also token this as classic Mercedes-Benz, big badges, huge AMG dual exhaust here, and of course these cool taillights. So getting into these back seats is no easy task, but of course sitting behind myself, my seats push back quite a bit right now, but I'm 5'9". Don't have much room back here. It's noticed most in headroom, which I just perfectly fit back here. The top of my head is just gently brushing the headliner. So what's funny about these early days Mercedes-Benz products is they tried to make everything automatic, right? So we have automatic tailgate, we have all four automatic windows, which is, pretty standard. Automatic sunroof as well, which has a gentle touch if you want to get it closed. It's kind of finicky. If you hold it, it'll actually pop open the other way and not want to go down. So very finicky controls from Mercedes-Benz. We also have an automatic telescopic steering wheel, which I do appreciate, especially getting comfortable, getting in the right driver's position for this classy coupe is very important. Power numbers for this 5.5 liter V8: 382 horsepower, 391 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 time is quoted at 5.1 seconds. When I picked up this car from First International Auto Group, I was just completely amazed at the quality of the interior. We do have some cheaper buttons, I will say, especially for things such as our heated and cooled seats here, and of course our radio station. The interior color is stone, which of course we also have this wood trim that carries along the steering wheel here, and of course our front stack. The bottom part of the dashboard is color matched to our seats, that stone color, which honestly, if you told me this was a cream or even like a cappuccino color, I would believe you. I wouldn't believe that this is actually stone. I think that's a bizarre name choice for this color, but still classic Mercedes. This is a gorgeous interior. My favorite part about this car so far is actually the steering wheel. I think it's quite elegant. The 2012 S-Class we drove also had a wooden steering wheel, and I just think it's such a nice touch, especially for a Mercedes product where you're getting high quality interiors. Our gauge cluster is just a standard analog gauge set. We do actually have a clock on the left-hand side. Middle is our speedometer, and on the right-hand side is our tachometer, which is actually in hundredths, which I found funny. The CLK550 is actually equipped with cruise control, which this stock is used to control it. When I got in, I actually tried to use this as a turn signal a couple times before I realized it's not the turn signal. And I had the windows open, so I actually didn't hear the little tick, 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 tick of the turn signal. So it was kind of funny to realize that I was not using that. Of course, in a 2009, you're not going to get Apple CarPlay. You're not even going to get Bluetooth in here, but we do actually have the ability to upgrade to a touchscreen. You can get, a single DIN unit and swap out this old CD player, unless you have a Linkin Park CD rolling around, maybe some Hybrid Theory, I would gladly listen alongside you inside this CLK550. Ride quality is buttery smooth, and here we just glide over small road imperfections with ease. We will, however, leave the harsher road imperfections to our worst road in Merrimack, New Hampshire test, which is coming up. Fuel economy numbers are nothing to write home about. Pretty standard for a coupe this size and this weight. Of course, that 5.5 liter V8 is going to hold you back in terms of getting you some good fuel economy numbers. The V8 is also paired to a 7-speed automatic transmission. Whether you're team BMW or team Mercedes, or hey, even Audi and Porsche, throw them in there, I will say that this Mercedes-Benz and Mercedes-Benz of these years between, the early 2000s and even up to the S-Class we drove in 2012, I will say that Mercedes-Benz just did their exterior styling right. This, honestly, in my opinion, especially the AMG version of the CLK, was just peak Mercedes, and I kind of wish they would go back to styling cars like this. I know with modern crash and safety standards and, the everlasting desire to get cars more efficient and more sleek and aerodynamic, they won't ever go back to this, but it is nice to know that some Mercedes-Benz still have this characteristic and they're rolling around on the roads today. This specific example from First International Auto Group has 89,691 miles on it. And as far as the engine and transmission and overall driving characteristics, this car hasn't lost a step. We do have 2 available drive modes for this CLK550. We have Sport, which we're currently in, and of course C for Comfort. I don't notice too many differences between the 2 drive modes. Sport is definitely a little more responsive in terms of throttle response, and I can definitely tell that it tries to keep you in a lower gear. But honestly, this car, even in sport mode, isn't as rowdy as I thought it would be. The AMG exhaust, which this comes with, sounds pretty nice when you rev it up, but just rolling around town, unless you get really high in that power band, you don't really hear it. And so while we have you all here, I'd like to tell a little funny story about this car. So that Panamera, which I just mentioned that we drove last year, the person who owned the CLK550 actually traded the CLK550 for that Panamera, and now they own the Panamera. They're based out of Maine, and I don't know if they've ever heard of my channel. I mean, I doubt they have, but if they did watch the video, I hope they also watched the CLK550 one that we're doing here today, because it'd be pretty cool to know that I reviewed 2 of the cars they've owned. Alright, so we're turning onto the worst road in Merrimack, New Hampshire. If you haven't watched one of my videos, basically the rule is we approach it at 20 miles an hour with every car we review in this area and see how it performs over the bumps. So fairly stiffly sprung, but not too bad. I will say that if you're using this as a daily commuter like the person from Maine did, you won't have an issue with, going into Boston, per se, if you're going in there for work. I mean, the harsher roads, it still handles pretty easily. So of course we have no backup camera, this being a 2009. It wasn't illegal to sell cars without backup cameras in the US until 2013. So we're a few years off from the CLK550 getting a backup camera, which of course this car was discontinued after the 2009 model year. We do have plenty of visibility basically throughout the entire cabin. This car is a phenomenal greenhouse, especially because it has no B-pillars. All right, so I have some windows down. Let's throw it in sport mode. Let's throw it in manual mode here. See if we can get this thing to make some noise. So when you wake up that V8, it definitely sounds a lot better than when you're keeping it quiet. I will say shifting this car in manual mode is quite weird because you actually move it to the side to upshift and downshift. To the left is downshift, up is right shift. I mean, to the right is upshift. So it's kind of a weird setup. Not my cup of tea. Maybe this one would have benefited from paddle shifters, but we're a little too early on for that. I think it's just kind of classy and finicky Mercedes at the time. So this lovely 2009 CLK550 is listed on the First International Auto Group site for just over $9,000. And think about what you get in here. Of course, you're going to deal with some finicky early days Mercedes, wear and tear items, but I mean, we have a 5.5 liter V8. We have heated and cooled front seats. We, of course, have 4 automatic windows and an automatic sunroof and an automatic trunk. We still have ESC and cruise control. And if you replace this with a Apple CarPlay radio, or maybe even just get a little, one of those little Bluetooth transmitters to hook up into your cigarette lighter, you'll have a much better time. And I think this would make a great daily driver. I know these 5.5 liter V8s have been known to be pretty stout, so I think, this would be a great option for someone who's looking for a cool and unique daily driver, or maybe just something interesting to take to car shows. With that being said, to conclude my video, it was such a blast driving the CLK550. It's not as sporty and agile as you might think, but it is a luxurious and comfortable coupe. The looks of this thing is just absolutely fantastic. I think you'll turn a lot of heads at car shows, and I personally have fallen in love with the early 2000s Mercedes. It makes me really want one of these or something similar, especially to like the W212 S-Class. I think that's another, consideration for me long term when I do start collecting cars, when I have the little bit of pocket change for that. Anyways, thank you all for watching this video. Thank you for First International Auto Group for lending me this car. And of course, follow me on Instagram for updates on what I'm driving next. I usually post a photo of what I'm filming that day, so you'll know what's coming up next on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a good week. Bye.